Hey everyone, Dave here talking to you today about a question that I get asked a lot, particularly by um, people with young kids, and that is what should we do with extra cash? Now, this is a case study that talks about a couple with a 1 year old daughter. And kind of the macro view here is the playbook is pretty clear, and the steps are usually the same on the front end of a process, particularly if you have credit card debt, not a lot of money in the bank. Once we get out past that stage, which I'll talk about in the second part of the video, it really then becomes a matter of personal choice. So let's look at this couple. We've got Josh and Joanna. They are a married couple in their mid 20s. They've got about $12,000 in high interest credit card debt, 23%. Joanna just worked her way through grad school and has landed a corporate job at a much higher salary, about $80,000. So they have much more coming in the door at this stage. And that new job also has a 401k plan with a 3% match and an HSA with a $1,500 matching contribution from the employer. Josh, he stays at home to take care of their 1 year old daughter, Brianna. Sometimes drives Uber in the evening. He has a thriving handyman business on the weekends, and these side hustles bring in an extra $30,000 into the household. So they've got about 110 coming in the door. Money was very tight during college. And while they don't have any student loans, mom and dad really helped out there. They currently have only $700 in a checking account and no other savings. So again, they're now making this $110,000 a year. They've decided to continue to live pretty lean. They're adding some spending, but really have established, a $6,000 a month budget, which is not a lot for a family of three these days. And they're going to try to hold there until their family finances improve. And so again, two big questions. What should they do as a couple with extra cash in the short term? And then longer term, as their income grows, what should they do? So short-term cash playbook for this couple. The first thing we want to do is try to break out of the cycle of putting things on the credit card when we run into little excess needs for cash. So we want to make sure we can handle things like a big car repair, medical bills. Eventually, we're going to budget for these things, but we want to have an emergency fund and have, ideally, I'd say put at least $2,000 to $3,000 in this emergency fund to cover things like this initially. The emergency fund should be in a separate account, ideally in a high yield savings account, earning some interest. I'm not recommending any of these three choices, but ones that I am familiar with and have accounts at are CIT Bank, Barclays, and Ally Bank. All of these are well established with billions of dollars in assets. So that's what we want to do. Get about $2,000 or $3,000 in the bank in a short-term emergency fund as our first step. Next, we want to go get the free money. Some of you may have guessed we should start working on the credit card debt next. And that wouldn't be a bad choice, but really my preference is let's go get some free money. So Joanna gets that 3% match from her employer. She invests 3%, they tack on an extra 3%, and it's basically an instant 100% return on that investment. And both her and her employer's contribution grow tax-free until retirement. Same story with the HSA. Let's do what we need to do in terms of an HSA contribution to get that $1,500 in free money. Again, if we just do the $1,500 and they match it with $1,500, that's an instant 100% return, better than the 23% that we're paying on the credit card. And we just love and going and getting the free money at this stage. Third, let's get rid of the credit card debt. This is the next priority. Plow every single extra dollar into paying that off. Let's try to get rid of that in the next 6 to 18 months. And that is our priority number 3 in terms of the short term. And then finally, we want to top up the emergency fund. So if Joanna's job is ultra secure, she loves what she does, there's very low unemployment in her industry. She has gotten, now I'm a little bit in the future, but let's say you've gotten great performance reviews, you love your boss, it's a stable company, very profitable. We might think about a 3-month emergency fund, but for most people, we really want to get to something more like 6% to handle blips in employment or other things. So somewhere between 18,000 and 36,000 to ultimately go into that emergency fund. So that's the short-term playbook. Now, Long term, let's look at this couple again 4 years later. Brianna is now 5, ready to go to kindergarten. This opens up some options for them. Joanna has done really well at work. She's gotten a promotion and now makes $105,000. Josh is now a licensed electrician. He's making $60,000, and that puts their total household income at $175,000. Now, again, we might think, oh my gosh, these people are set. But now we're at the stage where there are just many, many competing demands for money. That's very common for newly married couples. So, and that's why I don't have a fixed recommendation in this space like I do on the front end of, small emergency fund, get the free money, pay off the credit card debt, top up the emergency fund. That in almost all cases makes sense to do things in that order. But now, we should target saving 15 to 20% of our income. This couple should, or somewhere between, say, 26 and 35,000 per year. But what do we do with it? Do we want to save for retirement? Do we want to buy a first house? Do we want to help send Brianna to college? Those things are all competing demands for that cash, and it really depends on what's most important. This couple, again, is this an exact playbook? No. These are suggestions. So for them, let's maybe think about diverting 6% of their salary to a 401k. You might wonder why that's not a little bit higher. Well, we actually really want to see also this HSA contribution, and it's beyond the scope of this this post. I do have other posts on HSAs and why they're so valuable. It's basically the only retirement benefit. These things can be converted into a brokerage account, and then it's not taxed on the way in, it's not taxed on the way out, and it's not taxed while it's there. It's the only retirement vehicle that has that triple tax benefit. So we want a nice, healthy HSA contribution, which effectively is a retirement savings bump up beyond these levels. Maybe we're saving $1,000 a month toward a house, and maybe we're putting away $400 a month toward Brianna's college in a 529 plan. Again, we're spreading this money all around. This couple is saving about 18% of their income, about $32,000, to feed all of these savings goals that they have. Now, I have a couple highlighted in yellow here just to talk a little bit more. If we're going to max out one of these, whether it be a 401k or an HSA, I'd probably max out the HSA first, again, because of its triple tax benefit ultimately that you have there. But again, saving in either is great. And then in terms of house, 12,000, Dave, this is going to take us forever to get into anything. Well, one option that younger couples go ahead and do is they will sometimes buy a multi-unit, say a duplex, and live in half and rent the other half. And with an FHA loan, you can get into that for as little as 3.5% down. And so, 12,000 a year can get you there fairly quickly, depending on the base that you're starting with and or what you plan to do with it. So that is it for today. Like and follow if you'd like to see more from me. Take care.